Hey, Bronte, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Got a cup of tea, so I'm being
Yeah,
quintessentially British. It's not the
same.
usual glass of wine or ale I'd have during an interview.
Same.
You're on the tea as well.
Me too.
Oh, wonderful. How civilized. Oh, it's starting off things well. And also, this is the inaugural video of the Horror Writers Association UK chapter.
True, so exciting.
Congratulations on kickstarting it all and getting the ball rolling. It's been absolutely a joy working
I
along with you.
could I couldn't have done this alone, so thank you so much for your help.
It's a pleasure. And Harry as well. So, what was it that drove you to get the Horror Writers Association UK chapter together?
Well, when I found out about the Horror Writers Association, I realized that I needed to be a part of a community. And since there are no chapters outside of the Americas, I knew that we needed a chapter in the UK to support each other as a community, but also to promote UK horror. Because I feel like UK horror is underrepresented, even though horror has its roots in the UK.
As a UK horror author, I definitely want it presented more. And I think because the Horror Writers Association UK chapter used to be such a strong sort of organization, it's brilliant that it's being resurrected.
I'm so happy about that.
So, what
Um,
draws you to horror?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like as a reader or as a writer?
Both, actually.
Well, I feel like with horror we can express things metaphorically that otherwise you could not write about. And especially now that the world is sort of a dark place, we can work with fears to sort of concentrate on those fears and forget about the real world horrors.
Sounds good. And you're a writer as well.
I haven't published anything yet, but I have a few works in progress.
Fantastic. I think that describes quite a lot of the writers. We all start out with a mountain of unpublished work, and it sets the foundation for our career.
True, gotta find the right story for the first thing you put out there.
Sometimes I think I probably should have thought about that more. The first story that I published was a light techno thriller with romantic elements,
Oh, that sounds
and
exciting.
oh, it bombed. It bombed heavily, and it's definitely the story that I spent the most money on as well. And then after that, I sort of found my success when I focused more on horror
Hmm.
and I found my niche. But I'd have to admit, I've never been tremendously good at poetry, even though my first published work was a poem.
Hmm.
It's still on the internet somewhere and it's horrible. But it was my first published piece. I think I was 20 at the time. I
Okay.
had more hair and
What was that poem about?
it was it's a folk horror story about, but also with a liberating tale. It's about a girl who goes to a barn dance and she is being offered to either marry a fat, slobbery merchant or a dull, dim-witted vicar. And
Okay.
she's sort of depressed about her options. This is 17th century. It's not a good time for anyone. And then Satan comes to the barn dance and
Oh,
she gets sort of freed. It's a poem of liberation, but also horror
oh, that's good.
and
That
transfiguration.
that sounds interesting. I'll have to look for that.
No, I don't.
I'll find it.
The benefit of pen names, we can hide our shame. It was the way I wrote it in the UK, we had the Pendle Witch Trials, the Pendle Hill Trials, and in America, they've obviously got the Salem Witch Trials, and so they were very much an inspiration. And but you've been writing about poetry, in particular the Salem Witch Trials yourself. Are you studying?
I've been researching them. Yeah.
What do you think draws people and poets in particular to these witch trials?
Well, I believe like horror writers, it doesn't matter if it's prose fiction or poets, they've always been drawn sort of to eerie stuff, macabre stuff. But it's not just horror writers who wrote or still write about the Salem witch trials, because obviously they've had a massive influence on historical fantasy, for example, as they provide a real life background for these stories, but they've also been a subject for writers making a political statement, which could either be feminism, like Margaret Atwood or Sylvia Plath, or more commonly, in decades past, the other side of history,
Mm.
excusing what happened,
Yeah,
putting blame on the others. It's not our fault.
there's always been a brand of misogynism where it is, and even today, if you insult a woman, you could refer to them as a witch. We're centuries past the witch trials. So, how do you think that death is portrayed in the poetry and literature?
Well, it's often portrayed sort of almost heroically, either as a sacrifice or perhaps even powerful when you maybe put a curse on the town that set you ablaze.
Or in Terry Pratchett's case, they had an ancestor who hid a keg of gunpowder in her
Hmm.
skirt filled with nails. I think that, no, hang on. No, is that Terry Pratchett? It is Terry Pratchett. It was in Good Omens. I was thinking it was in his version of where they had the three witches. Oh, I need to reread my Terry. Do love Terry Pratchett. Was it Good Omens? Or was it in his book about the witches?
He's published quite a lot of stuff.
No, he was Terry Pratchett was prolific and absolutely iconic. How do you think religion plays a role in these poetry?
Well, obviously, you need religion to make it historically accurate
Yes.
because back then, pretty much everyone was Christian. And if you weren't, you were a witch.
And then there were the different branches of Christianity as well. You had the Cathar Rebellion. You had even the within in America, you had Mormonism. I
Okay.
and still do have Mormonism. You had the Catholics, the Protestants. So Christianity in its many branches would feature heavily in historical. But if we're looking at sort of Christianity here, and how do you find that Satan, having spoken about it earlier, how do you find that Satan plays a role in these poems, and in particular its impact on the female characters?
Well, it mostly was women who got burned, accused, and executed. Actually, they didn't get burned as much. That's more of a fictional thing. Usually they got hanged. But the Puritans believed that the soul was inherently female. So your soul is female too.
I
But
very often,
the body of the woman is weaker according to their beliefs and can be seduced easily by Satan.
well, if that's true, that is definitely more evidence that I am female. And so, given that there is an inherent misogynism in that, why do you think that so many feminist authors continue to focus on the Christian imagery in these poems and in their literature?
Because Christianity was not only the cause of it, but it still is the cause of a lot of injustice. In many branches, for example, in Catholicism, women are inferior. They can't be priests. They can't become the next pope. They're sort of, and the Bible's sort of misogynistic too.
Sort of.
Even if you take into account the historical context, because it was written by men.
Although there was Pope Joan, wasn't there? The Pope that was discovered to be a lady. Is that a myth? Or I'm sure there was a lady Pope who accidentally got pregnant and that was how she was discovered.
Truth about that is probably hidden somewhere in the Vatican archives.
Or Wikipedia, one of the two. Worth looking up. So do you think that these poems, do they offer empowerment or critique or resignation? Or do you think it's more complicated in their portrayal of women?
I believe it always depends on the poet, naturally, but one poem I've been researching is about a pregnant woman who's, I don't know if it was to her husband or just a fling. He sacrifices himself so that the baby and the mother can be saved. So that is then seen as heroic from a male perspective.
Right.
On the other hand, you've got Margaret Atwood, for example, who actually dedicated her poem, Half-Hanged Mary, to a potential ancestor of hers. And this woman was hanged, but didn't die. So it's sort of about survival, also about rebirth, and obviously she uses a lot of Christian imagery, because who else was reborn or supposedly died and then returned? Jesus.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that does make sense. I'm now sort of hearing you say that. It sort of makes me think about the times that I've written similar things, and I'm thinking about Dicey didn't go into it with an inherently misogynistic angle, but now I'm sort of questioning myself. I wrote a story about the Morrigan in which a chap sacrificed himself so the next generation of Morrigan can be born. I might need to reread the ending of that one and just make sure it's still okay and up to date, so to speak.
Morrigan is such a complex character. So,
It is indeed, and it's got
so
similarities with Christianity as well, because again, it's the three, instead of having the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, you've got the Mother, the Maiden, and the Crone, the Holy Trinity.
that is one of the interpretations for the Morrigan, and I believe that she's such an important and multifaceted creature or being, goddess, that any interpretation is fine.
Yep. What is she? She's also the Crow Queen and also a sort of proto Valkyrie in the way that she welcomes warriors and sends them to their own version of heaven. So many
Yes,
different versions of the Morrigan over the day, which is great because it means you can write whatever you like about them and not have to worry too much about being fact checked.
I think she's even sort of linked to the Banshee.
Heralding someone's death. I can relate to that to anyone who listened to my short-lived punk band, Turtle Fur, with two R's because we're metal. Well, anyway, that's quite a lot to think about. Where do you think we go next with, sorry, veering straight back to the Horror Writers Association UK chapter? Where do we go next from here? What's coming up? What's exciting? Sorry, completely
Well, we've already sort of set the date for our first meeting, which
forgot.
is
When's it going to be? When's it going to be?
Halloween. Well, Halloween/Samhain, so October 31st. But I'm hoping that there might be a few things in store for us before that.
Cool. And do existing horror writers members, how do they set themselves up to be members of the UK chapter?
Well, first you have to be an official member of the Horror Writers Association in general.
Yep.
You just join our Discord, join our Facebook group, let us know that you want to be a member of our community.
Okay.
Also, you can officially choose the UK chapter as your home chapter on Horror Writers Association's membership page now.
And that's in Wild Apricot.
I think that's what it's called, yeah.
Come up with a more horror-related name, surely. Feral Apricot. What about people who aren't members of the Horror Writers Association, but they're just horror fans? Are they still able to join the Discord, hang out with us?
You can still join our Discord, join our socials. And then if you decide that that's the right thing for you, yep, do join us.
Yeah. Then that will unlock further privileges.
Exactly.
Cool. Right. Well, very much for talking to me, and
Thank you for having me.
thank you for setting up the Horror Writers Association UK chapter. Very excited to follow it and be a part of it.
Thank you for your involvement.
Absolute pleasure. Okay, I will see you
Bye.
soon. Thank you.
Thank you.